Let's see here. I think we are. Hola, 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 diva. All right. I'm back. I'm coming to you talking about the reformatting of contracts. Now, this is take two because I got cut off the first time. You know, things happen. But we're going to keep it moving so I can try to get this information to you. I'm just going to start from the beginning because I was talking about a sister who is my client, and I helped her with a contract. Now, I appreciate her because she's given me the opportunity to talk to you about this whole incident and what happened so that maybe I can help someone else. All right. So thank you, sis, for giving me permission to use this information. But basically, I'm not going to give her name, of course, but I'm just going to go over the situation that happened so that, if anybody else was in the same situation, you can use this to help you in your situation. Now, my sister came to me and she was letting me know that she had seen a video that I had done about how to respond to contracts. Now, when we're dealing with contracts where we're talking about mortgages and what have you, please understand your mortgage has already been paid. All right. So I'm able to help people out of those type of situations. Hola, Rooster. Hello, Rooster. Hola, Nestor. Hola, Ruiz. Argentina, mi amigos. Ese es en inglés. Espero. Spin. Learn some English. All right. So, we're talking about how my sister came to me and she says to me that she had been watching my videos about how to reformat contracts and what a contract is. And she fortunately was able to realize that her landlord had sent her a contract, which was really a statement saying they wanted her to go into court. They were evicting her. So now, when we're talking about a landlord, it's a little bit different than a mortgage, because in a mortgage, there's all kind of things that have happened. You've already paid for the mortgage. With a landlord situation, is a little bit different. However, you still can reformat your contracts, and that's what I was able to help her do. The thing to her advantage was that she contacted me immediately after she got this eviction notice. She contacted me, and we were able to, like I said, formulate a new contract. Because again, this was a contract where they were saying, hey, you're going to be evicted, you're going to be kicked out of the house. Now, of course, once we get to this point, this type of notice, you got to understand, I already know that you have not responded to two other documents that they have already sent you. So let's understand contract law, because all of these businesses that we're dealing with, they are operating under contract law. So the law in contract law is you send your initial contract, and then when they don't answer, you send a notice of fault. All right. Now, just before it goes into public court, you're sending a notice of default. All right. So there's two initial contracts. Well, actually three. All right. Notice your initial notice of fault, notice of default. And then after that notice of default, that's when you're going into public court. Now, she's getting a notice of default along with a contract coming from her lawyer saying she needs to show up in court for the eviction. We still, even now, here's the other thing about contract law. When someone sends you a contract, you need to answer that within 10 days. Understand what a contract is. If somebody sends you a notice saying, all right, Mr. Jones, we have talked about how you owe us $500 and you agreed to pay it by such and such a date. And if you don't pay it by this date, we're going to evict you from the property. That's a contract. It seems like just a little letter. No, that is a contract. And so if you don't answer that contract that they've sent you within 10 days, if you don't answer that, you have agreed to all of the terms in that initial contract. You've agreed, yes, you owe $500. You agreed that you would pay it. And if you don't pay it, you agreed to be evicted from the property. All right. That's how contracts work in common law. Now, also, please note, I have put in the title here, the hierarchy of law chart, that you can go ahead and download or look at so that you'll understand what we're talking about and how high common law and contract law stand on this quote unquote totem pole. Now, we're also talking about, again, rapid response, knowing your rights, knowing how to stand. And that's what I was able to help this sister do. So basically, yeah, they've sent her a contract, and now they're at the point where they're trying to evict her. The thing about this particular case is that when I saw it, I'm thinking, okay, have you had problems with the landlord, or have there been any other issues going on? Because of the rate at which they were moving on her process. Now, she was not even a full month behind. She wasn't even at this point a week behind. So what happened is, I'll tell you how the story ended up where she's in this situation. She got this contract with this landlord, or a rental agency. And initially she was paying by the month, and she had been on time, had problems with finances, job, what have you, and informed them verbally, made a verbal contract. I got to pay you once per week. So she had been paying once per week, but she had fallen behind. And she also understood, okay, I'm going to pay you once per week, and that's going to include a late fee. Understand that? That's fine. Okay. But now she had missed a payment, one of her weekly payments. And by this time, they're sending her a notice saying, we're going to go to court with this. All right. So the problem is that there's a point at which most laws, first of all, they can't evict you unless they're taking you to court. They got to take you to court. And normally that's going to take 2 months. That's what, now, this is why I didn't understand the case at first, because I'm thinking, okay, this is not the normal process for a landlord. However, the landlord has turned this property over to a property management company, and property management companies move very, very rapidly when it comes to this legal process, because again, it takes 2 months at least, more or less, to get someone out of a property. And so a management company is going to work quickly. That if you fall behind, they're going to be trying to get you out of there in a month's time, at least, so they can have somebody in that property so that it can continue to make money. Well, she was not a full month behind. And so what was going on with this property management company is that they were bordering on illegal activity, because they were trying to bring her into court when she wasn't even a full month behind. So one of the things that has happened, what's happening with this case is, when she came to me, I said, listen, we're going to write them a contract. And we're going to, when we write them a contract, you're going to put your terms into this contract. So let's talk about this, because one of the things we need to understand is, just because you're in a contract, and this is why we talk about reformatting the contract. Just because you're in a contract doesn't mean you cannot change that contract. You can change that contract, and that's what she had to do. Now, she had already, to her advantage, like I said, she contacted me immediately. She got the contract from them, and 2 days later, she's calling me. Good. This gives us, enough time so that we can respond, and then we can make our own terms. So what we did was we created a document whereby, in it, she stated, okay, I'm going to pay you half, all right? Or, some close to half. I'm going to pay you this amount in a money order. And I would prefer to settle this out of court. And if you have any problems with accepting these agreements, because by the way, I'm going to send you half, and then before the end of the month, I'm going to make sure everything else is paid. This is my agreement. This is what I would like to do. And with this, if you have a problem, you need to send the money order back within this many days. Otherwise, you are accepting the terms of this agreement. So this is how you this was reformatting a contract. And in the contract we put in, and I would like the ability to be able to continue paying on a weekly basis. It is understood that a late fee will be included. So we've reformatted the contract, and we're putting it in writing. Now, let me say this real quick. Please make note of this. It's not a good deal to be talking to these people, because when you're talking, you're really talking in what we call the matrix, and you're talking as a dead fictitious entity. And what you want to do is speak as a creditor, as a sovereign, as a person standing under God. And you do that in writing. And one of the things that we have to understand is that when you're talking to these people, not only are you're speaking as a dead fictitious entity, but you don't have it in writing. If you don't have it in writing, then it becomes your word against their word. And if it ever does go to court, you're going to be the one on the losing end. Trust, because they're going to have their stuff in writing. That's why they've been sending you these contracts, these that you think are letters. You just think, oh, they sent me a letter. Okay, well, I didn't answer the letter. Okay, that's a contract. You didn't answer, and you agreed to everything they put in that letter or contract. So this is why we have to start understanding what these letters really are. They're contracts, and you want to reformat your contract. You can challenge them. You can challenge them all day if you want to play that game. But really, one of the things that was the other thing to her favor is that she did honor her contract. Now, she had problems again at the beginning, and she did go to them and say, hey, I need to reformat this. I can only pay once a week. I want to make sure I do pay you. And they agreed to it because they're accepting her payments. So once they've accepted her payments, they're agreeing to it, but she didn't have anything in writing. So now we're putting it in writing, and we're making sure that if this ever does go to court, she's going to come in her favor. All right. So again, once we reformatted that, she had some questions, and I'm going to go over some of the questions. She said, one of her first questions when she contacted me first was, should I answer? And it was like, you absolutely should answer, because once again, these are contracts. And if you don't answer, you're agreeing to everything they've said in their letter. They said you owe $500. You might not owe $500. You could owe $100. But if you said, okay, I owe $500, you know how you say, okay, I owe $500? Simply by not answering. I want you to look up tacit assent, TACIT. ASSENT, or tacit assent or tacit agreement. By the way, I'm going to have a contract writing session where I do, I'll write a contract for traffic tickets and for other things, and they're all pretty much the same, but you're going to be able to see, how I write the contracts. I'll put some templates up. So if you're interested in that, please put in some information below letting me know you'd like for me to tag you on that. All right, but yeah. So one of the things is when you're, you got to understand that when we're formatting these contracts, or you get the opportunity to put your contractual agreements in it. All right. So yes, you should always answer when they send these contracts, and you should put your terms in there for yourself, because you have much power. Also, this is why I want you to go and look at the laws, the hierarchy of laws, for the simple fact that you've got to understand where these contracts that we're writing stand above the Constitution. They stand above all these federal laws. They stand high. And so when they're writing you a contract, they are operating in the private, in what is called the private common law or contract law. All right. And when you write your contract, you're operating in the private contract law. Now, when you are not answering, they're dropping down here to public law, where they're taking you into a public court. That's down here. Once you get down here, I know you didn't handle your business up here. You weren't walking as a God. You weren't walking as a sovereign. All right. So this is why it's important. Yes, you should answer. And you got to understand that when you answer, you're standing as a God when you do that. And you might be in a tough situation financially or whatever, and you've got to restructure this. Stand as a God by answering. All right. How should I answer? In writing. That was one of her questions. How should I answer? You should answer everything in writing. Why? Because once again, you don't want it to be his word against your word or their word against your word. You want to have it in writing. And there are certain ways that we send our contracts off. One of the things is we always are going through the post office, because that puts you under federal jurisdiction, and it gives you federal protection, and it gives you a witness. All right, that's one witness that you're going to have. So there's certain things, certain ways that we'll talk about when I get into writing the contract and sending it off. Again, if you're interested in me tagging you on that session, please put a note below so that I can make sure I tag you. So you're going to send that off. There's certain ways you're going to send it off. There's certain things you're going to put in the contract. There's certain ways you're going to format the contract to make sure that it says everything you needed to say, but it needs to be in writing. Should I go to court? Now, most of the times I'm telling my clients to stay far, far away from courts because courts deal with dead, fictitious entity. You ain't no dead, fictitious entity. You standing as a guy. Remember, when you go to court, that's down here. You're going to handle your business up here as a God, as a sovereign, as a what do you call it? a creditor. So this is why it's important to understand that we should communicate up here, not down here. You're not a dead, fictitious entity, and no, you don't need to be going to court. But just in case something happens where you do end up, you're gonna be so well that you are impervious to whatever this judge is trying to put on you. All right, if you do end up in court. But in this case, the way we had it situated, let me talk about how we resolved the case, because this went on for a couple of weeks or so. But the case, once again, she sent in a contract. She said, I'm going to pay you half, and I'm going to pay the balance before the end of the month. And I would prefer that this not go to court. I also want the opportunity to continue to pay weekly. And if you have a problem with it, you need to send the money back within this amount of time. If you don't, so if they didn't send the money back, then that means they accepted all of these terms in her agreement. They accepted all of these terms within her contract. Period. And so any court they try to take her into, she's gonna stand on these. And the judge has no alternative but to honor what she has already put in writing. If she don't have this, if you don't have it in writing, you know what you got? You got your word against their word. This is why you put it in writing. All right. Yeah, so going to court, that is one of the things that I try to stress that we don't do, and we put things into play to make sure we don't have to get to that level. Do they have a case? No, they didn't. By the way, these people, like I said, they were bordering on illegal because of the simple fact that by the time they were trying to take her to court, which was close to the end of the month, maybe a week and a half before the end of the month. By the time they were trying to take her to court, she would have been past due on the whole month. You know, like I said, it was bordering on illegal because they were trying to ask her to pay for something. Well, she hadn't used that whole month. And again, I understand what they were doing as business people, because they needed, if you're not going to pay, we need to get you out of there. However, these people were moving very, very rapidly. And so one of the things I advised her is that we need to make another notice because what happened is there's a conversation that she had after or just about when the court date, the original, because there was two, court date came up, and it was where she had to call them and ask them, okay, you got my money, right? Okay, well, what's going on with this court date, because you all have not communicated with me? Well, they say to her, oh, well, it's been postponed to the next month. Well, she's already said it's going to be paid before the end of the month. What are you talking about next month? And plus, then she turned around and paid she was on time for the following month. So they set up a case for the following month. And not only had she made due on the last payment, but she was on time for this month. So there was no case. So now they're trying to take her to court to postpone it after she's already paid everything. All right. So no, they don't have a case. But then there was this question about court costs. Do I have to pay court costs? Now, I told her absolutely not. And you don't. And what you're going to do is write a contract, another contract, making sure you make it absolutely clear. I will not be responsible for any court costs. as you have agreed to all of the terms in my agreement where I said this needs to be settled out of court. If you decide to take it to court, that's your responsibility. That's on you all, not me. So that needs to be documented. And the thing is, do not allow these people to bully you into paying for things that you know you shouldn't be paying for. They're trying to get her to pay for their lawyer. That's your problem. We're gonna settle this out of case. I said out of court, rather. I said we're gonna settle this out of court. You agreed to it. You took my money. So now let's talk about that, the money situation. Contracts have three things. They have the initial offer, they have an acceptance, and then they have what's called consideration. Consideration is the money. Consideration is saying, okay, you are agreeing to hold everything in my contract as valid. Okay, let me give you an example. If you go, let's say, and you buy a car, you go, oh, let me rephrase that. You go and look at a car, and you say to this person, okay, I like the car. I want to come back and buy it in a week. But you come back in a week and they have sold the car. That's not a contract. You offered and they accepted. They say, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll hold the car, you can buy it. But if you don't give them consideration to hold that car, then they can sell the car and legally there's no contract with you. However, if you go and look at the car and you tell the person, hey, I love this car. I love this car. I want to come back and get this in a week. And you offer, I want to come back and get it in a week. And they say, okay. And you say, here's $1. Hold that car for me. Legally, they got to hold that car. That is consideration. It doesn't matter how much you're putting down. If they take that $1 and they make an agreement with you and they say, yeah, okay, I'm gonna hold a car. And they took your $1, you can give them 50 cents, you can give them 25, you can give them 2 pennies. If they accept your consideration, they have accepted the contract and they are legally liable for anything that comes about because they didn't honor the contract. All right. So these are things that we have to understand about how contracts are and what they are and how to be able to stand on what we're putting out. Now, court costs. And another question was, can they evict me? And the answer is absolutely not. You have a contract, contract saying that you have the lease up until this time. So I want to talk about real quick what happened to me when I was in Argentina. When I first got to Argentina, I had been here about 7 months. And I was living in Buenos Aires. And I had gotten this place. It was like it was a pool house in the back of this other larger house. And so I had rented the place and I had made a contract with the mother of the place. And so anyway, I had been there. I hadn't been there for a full 2 weeks. And what ends up happening is that I had made a really good deal. I was like, yeah, it's a good deal. So I made a really good deal and I had paid them. And the mother didn't speak a lot of English or whatever, but she was cool. I liked her. Then here comes the daughter. The daughter speaks English, and the daughter's asking me, well, how old are you? And blah, blah, blah. Asking me questions that I was not going to answer. Like, no, you got another question, because certain questions I don't answer. But anyway, that night, they come to me and they're telling me, well, we want you to leave. That's what the daughter's saying. We want you to leave. Okay, why? Well, because we're not going to discuss that. We just want you to leave. You're not going to tell me why. No, we need you. When do you want me to leave? Tonight. Oh, tonight. Okay. So you're not going to so now it gets loud. It gets where I'm aggravated and irate. And I'm like, you're not going to just tell me that I have to leave and you're not going to give me a reason. What is the reason that you're trying to put me out? And well, we don't have to discuss that. So when I get loud, now I'm getting frustrated because I've got to call the police. And I don't know really, my Spanish is not that good. It's still not that good. But it was, I got to call the police. And that's one thing. I'm like, how am I going to communicate with them what I need them to do? Now, they end up calling the police. And I was like, good. Now, normally we would think, oh, the police is coming. Uh-oh, they're going to put me out. Well, here's the deal. I know I got a contract. I got a contract. And you got to understand that when you have a contract like that, it gives you right to the property and not them. It don't belong to them no more. It belongs to you. And unless you have done something to make that contract invalid, that's your property. So I had already paid them, and here comes, the police, and I'm like, good. See, what they not understanding, they thinking he's gonna arrest me or kick me out the property. No. You don't even have the right. You don't even have the right to talk to me if I don't give you permission to, because I know my rights. I know who I am. So what ends up happening, the police comes, I'm like, and here's the daughter. Well, I'm gonna translate for you. No, you're gonna get out. You're gonna get out. And that's what I told the police officer. I said, because he's trying, I said, you see this contract? He's trying to take the contract from my hand. I'm like, no. And I had to make sure he understood. I'm in control here. My Spanish is not that good, but I know my rights and I know the law. And it don't matter if I'm in Argentina or Timbuktu or, damn it, I don't know if the moon. But it doesn't matter where I am. What I do know is what my rights are with respect to these laws, because all of them are the same on this whole planet, on the entire planet. So what I know is that you can't arrest me for what? What you gonna arrest me for? This is my property. I got a contract saying it's mine. So now, no, you can't have it. What I need you to do is understand who you are at this point. At this point, you are my bodyguard. That's what you are. And I need you to tell them to get off this property. And then I'm gonna have a conversation with you. And that's what he did. He had to tell them to leave. You got to understand what your rights are. How you knowing how to stand. He had to tell them to leave. Now, can you understand how they would feel? They were feeling at that time when they had to get off this property that they thought was theirs. No, he had to tell them. And they was like, they were looking stupid because they're thinking they called him to arrest me, but no, he had to work for me by law. By law. All right. So here we are. Here I am with this contract. And I'm really like in my head, like, what am I going to do? Because I don't want to stay here, and I'm not going to leave here until I have this situation resolved. So he's telling me, well, they want you to leave. I know what they want. Okay, you tell them what I want. You know what they're going to give me? They're going to give me 3 times what I paid in my deposit. That's what they're going to give me. Now, my Spanish is bad, but I know numbers. I know numbers very well. So it was like, listen, and I was talking to him in my really bad Spanish. I'm like, look, this much, 3 times. So whatever they paid me, we're talking about some thousands. Since they want me out of here so quickly, they're going to pay me 3 times what the deposit is. Now, I need you to understand something. And I wrote this on paper. And understand this was a contract that I'm writing. And I'm saying 3,000 or whatever the rate was. And I'm putting 3 times rather what, and I put down the number, and I put, if they want me out of here, this is what they need to pay. Now, he's at this point now, he has become a mediator, and he is carrying to them my contract. Take this to them, and you tell them I want it in cash tonight, right now, and I'll be glad to leave. And he took it to them, and you know what they did? They paid me in cash. So again, we have to understand how to stand on our contracts and what we're standing on. Then I told him, and I said, once they paid me, I said, you need to stay here with me until I get all my stuff out of here and I leave. So now he became my agent. He became a mediator. He became my bodyguard because I know the law, and that's what he had to do. So when we're talking about, somebody evicting you or what have, or even just going against you in these contracts, you have to understand what you're standing on. Now, it's important that we start reading our contracts better when we, whether we're getting in a rental situation or we're getting into even a mortgage. I mean, and, with that, it's always fraud. There's always fraud in the mortgage, always, always, always. But when we're talking about this landlord situation, these are situations where, you're going to have to honor these contracts that you're entering into. And unfortunately, she was, she was honorable for the most part. Like I said, when she had to change it, then, she did communicate with them verbally, but it was like, okay, now you need to start communicating with them on paper, because they are not really honoring that. They're trying to evict you after you've already made a contract saying I want to pay weekly. And then here you are, you're not even a full month behind, and they're trying to put you out. There's a problem with that, and it's close to illegal. All right. And that, when also, here's the other reason why we put things in writing. You got to understand, and this, like I said, when I do my contract writing session, I'm going to really go deeper into understanding what's going on with the way that I set up my contracts. Again, the way contract law works, or common law, is that you got your first initial contract, and then you got a notice of fault. Like, I'm notifying you that you didn't do what you said you were going, or you might have missed my first contract that I sent to you, but I'm notifying you that you're in fault. And then a notice of default is what happens just before you go into public court. All right. And so we've got to understand that that's the situation the mortgage companies follow. That's the situation your car company follows. That's the situation your credit card company, all of them. They're following the same. Hey, you're late. You're supposed to be paying me $500 by this time. You didn't pay it. That means you're in fault or default. They're sending you contracts. And then when you learn how to respond to them, you're going to learn a whole lot of power, especially when we're talking about mortgages, especially when we're talking about cars. You're going to gain a whole lot of power. So at any rate, if I have any questions, please put them below, because I'm about to close out. But I hope this information gives you a little bit of knowledge about how to stand in these contracts, because you're not as helpless as you think you are. And if you want to take back your power, you need to know how to write contracts. First of all, recognize them, learn how to write them, and then learn how to respond and stand on what you're sending out, such that you have a little bit more confidence, just like I had when that cop came at me in Argentina. I was like, yeah, you my bodyguard, get them off my property. That was so fun. That was fun. But you can gain that power too, because it's just a matter of knowing who you are and how to stand. Rooster Jones, tag me. All right, brother. Let's see here. Anybody else? Let's see. Hi, David. Hi, Pedro. Hello. So a simple receipt can be used as a contract. Absolutely. If an agreement was made and money was, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because that's what we had. It was just on a little sheet of paper, because I told her, I was like, okay, I'm going to pay you this. All right, write it out. Write the amount of time that I have, the contract is, and all of that. It had the terms on it, the amount that I paid, the months or whatever that I was leasing it for. It had all of that. So yes, that was a contract, and that's exactly what I held up to the cop when he came in, and I had to make sure he understood, because he was telling me, the cop was saying to me, well, they want me to arrest you. Arrest me for what? Well, they want me to put you out. You can't put me out because this is my property. Here you go. Boop. So now it's like, now what? No, here I tell you what. Get them off this property. And that's exactly what he had to do. So anyway, do I have any other questions? But yeah, there's power in these contracts and knowing, what these papers and documents are. All right, so Diva, I hope I was able to give you some insight. I'm going to tag you if you ask me to for the session where I do the actual contract writing, and hopefully we're going to get you some more power so that you can learn how to stand as a god, walk as a sovereign, act as a creditor, and stay out of the dead fictitious lane of the public court. Vive la vie. Peace. Ciao.